Ecclesiastes chapter 10. As dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honour. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as fools walk along the road, they lack sense, and they show everyone how stupid they are. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offences to rest. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, the sort of error that arises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy the low ones. I have seen slaves on horseback, while princes go on foot like slaves. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it. Whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stone may be injured by them, and whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. If a snake bites before it is charmed, the charmer receives no fee. Words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, but fools are consumed by their own lips. At the beginning their words are folly, and at the end they are wicked madness. Fools multiply words. No one knows what is coming. Who can tell someone else what will happen after them? The toil of fools wearies them. They do not know the way to town. Woe to the land whose king was a servant and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth and whose princes eat at a proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. Through laziness the rafters sag, because of idle hands the house leaks. A feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, and money is the answer for everything. Do not revile the king, even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom, because a bird in the sky may carry your words, and a bird on the wing may report what you have said. So, chapter 10 of Ecclesiastes is different to all the other chapters in the book of Ecclesiastes because it's just like the book of Proverbs. It's like a collection of Proverbs. So it's really, really interesting. And what's been happening is we've been going through this whole book of Ecclesiastes, and I've explained before that it was like a testimony. You know, like when someone gets up in church and shares their testimony, and often they say, all these things happened in my life, and then I found God and it became good. And Solomon's been going through talking about how he tested this and he tried this and he found it all meaningless. He found it all meaningless because Christ or God wasn't in it. So he's been doing that for 9 chapters, and now we've got to chapter 10 and we've got a little collection of Proverbs just like the book of Proverbs. It's so strange. It's like a chapter all on its own in the book of Ecclesiastes, and then there's going to be 2 more chapters after this in which he's going to get to the good part of his testimony start saying, start showing you the things he's concluded from all of his philosophizing. But as we've gone through, he said some things which on their own are not right. Or they're right if you don't have Christ. But if you add Christ to them, it becomes the opposite of what he said. And there's been plenty like that. So in this particular chapter, we've got some Proverbs. So I'm just going to comment on a few of them. The very first proverb was chapter 1, verse 1, and he says, as dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honour. So things can be superly wonderful, but a little bit of stupidity messes it all up. I remember when I was a child, we were in Papua New Guinea, saw the Queen come to visit, Queen Elizabeth II, and she drove down the street with her entourage, Rolls Royces with bulletproof windows and the whole thing. Fantastic. The amount of effort that went into putting that on. And then something happened right when there was a protester, and they did, crazy stuff. And that one person just made the whole thing, it just spoiled the whole event. And so that's an example of it. Or here's another example. You make a beautiful egg and lettuce sandwich and get one tiny little drop of, a spit in the sandwich, a little bit, and then seal it up. It might only be a little bit, but it's ruined the entire sandwich. So that's true. So this is the reason why we teach our children to behave themselves, because you can be somewhere and it can be all nice, but one little dumb thing can mess it up. But it's also the reason why we control our own hearts. and we control our own feelings. You know, you can mess up your whole entire life because you don't control your feelings. Feelings are good and they're wonderful, but they lie to you. Feelings often are misleading. We have to learn to control them. And so this little proverb teaches us so much. Verse 4, Solomon said, if a ruler's anger arises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offences to rest. So we've seen sometimes in life where someone gets blamed for something, you know, someone gets upset and says, it's all your fault. Well, if they run away at that point, it proves it was their fault. Do you know what I'm saying? But if you don't run away and you stay to talk it through, then it may or it may not be your fault. You've got to figure it out. And but, you know, when you run, guilt is kind of associated with you in that situation. Verse 8, he who digs a pit may fall into it. And we saw this in the book of Esther when we were discussing, you know, Haman and Mordecai. And Haman hated Mordecai and built a gallows for him, 25 feet high or 25 meters high, a huge gallows. He wanted Mordecai to be killed, but he ended up being hung on his own gallows. Now, we might look at that story and say, yeah, that's just them. You might think that you don't do that. But the truth is, we all set pits for people in various ways. We set traps to catch people in their words. We say things to make people be proven false. And we all set all sorts of traps, and they end up backfiring all the time. What we need to do is just walk in complete sincerity, and we need to have grace for others. Be there for them in all things. Finally, in verse 20, do not revile the king even in your thoughts. In other words, don't think bad things about other people. Now, you might say it's not possible because you might have enough trouble just controlling what you say, let alone controlling what you think. Well, I would say to you that the best way to control what you say is to get on top of your thoughts. And then you don't have to be as worried about what you say because your thoughts are clean and pure. And so what we need to do is develop pure hearts for people. So you might have a king, a political leader, or a mayor, or a church leader, or someone that you don't think much of, but you need to come to a place in your mind where you honour them. And so I remember recently I had an appointment with a professor of political history here in Australia. This guy's done a lot of research into, you know, politics, the history of Australian politics. And I remember saying to him something like, in my opinion, I thought most Australian governments had been pretty good. And I said, you know, there's usually things we dislike about most prime ministers, but generally all Australian prime ministers have done a good job. Look at how solid our country is. So it may be that one party's in and you don't like that party, but they're still running the country in a reasonably well manner. And so there's actually often, even if you don't like who your government is at the time, there's often much you can still be grateful for. Well, when I said this to him, he was completely surprised. He's a professor of political history, but it seemed in his mind that you could only ever fully like someone or fully not like them, but that's not the truth. The truth is you can come to a place in your mind where you have honour for people, even if you don't agree with every single thing that you think. So therefore, you're not cursing them in your mind. And when you speak of them, you'll speak well of them. So my suggestion to you is we need to cultivate honour in our hearts to all people, even people we disagree with. And it's a Christian thing to do. So Lord, I thank you for the Proverbs that we find here, our bonus chapter of Proverbs in Ecclesiastes chapter 10. And I pray you'd give us grace to come to a place of honour in our hearts for others, even those we disagree with. Amen.